I'm Christin Smith, and
I am Bill Hosko. We're here today to talk about baseball coming to downtown St. Paul, Minnesota.
Bill, I've known you for nearly 20 years, and I love being in your beautiful gallery. But before we talk baseball, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Well, I am a native of St. Paul. I was born here in 1962, September 9th, so I just had my 50th birthday, although I am kind of a kid at heart at times, I think you might say. I have been a self-employed architectural artist for 21 years, and I've had my art gallery here in downtown St. Paul since early 1994. I'm unusual in that I've dedicated my art career to displaying St. Paul, my hometown.
Bill, do you support the St. Paul Saints moving to Lowertown?
Absolutely. I have been to the Midway Stadium. It's a wonderful facility. I like the people out there. The crowds are great. I think them coming to Lowertown is just fine.
What do you think of the city's current plan?
I would give it a B. It's a good plan. It will be successful. It'll be good for downtown. One of my greatest concerns, though, is that it will be largely a seasonal facility, and I, as a business owner and lover of this city, would like to see something created that brings people to downtown St. Paul, perhaps more year-round.
When did you start working on an alternate plan?
The city's conceptual illustrations of the ballpark, first ones were released in December of 2010. And then the following month, I put together an alternate concept, just a site plan, any perspective drawing. And that concept basically saves the large Gillette building that's on the site in Lowertown and physically cuts away a section of the building, and you insert the ballpark within that, the outfield out past the edge of the building. And then there's loads of room to do multiple other future attractions. So you could create a true year-round facility by saving the building.
Sure. Now, you showed these plans to Mike Beck, one of the owners of the St. Paul Saints, in April 2011.
Yes.
What did he think of that?
That was in 2011. As a courtesy, Mike Beck was one of the first people I did show it to. And Mike came here to the gallery, and he loved the concept. And we had a very good rapport. He called me a type A personality like himself. Very creative. And the hands are moving all the time. And he did remark, and I'm quoting him, "Hosko, you are the only one who has thought to reuse the Gillette building."
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to read this. Based upon input from others over the last year, this alternate ballpark concept has become more defined. Would you like to elaborate?
I have shown this to many, many people, since January of 2011. And it's been great listening to feedback and people making suggestions. And, a couple of them, as a phase 2 component, would be a velodrome. In Blaine, there is a bike racing track up there. It's a velodrome. It's part of the sports complex up in Blaine. And they would like to, perhaps sooner rather than later, move into the core cities. Biking is just becoming a big deal in the Twin Cities, particularly in the core areas.
Sure.
The Twin Cities is known nationally now as being one of the premier biking metropolitan areas in the country. A couple other concepts that were brought to my attention that actually would work are the Twin Cities Model Railroad Museum. For those of you who've never been there, it's up at Bandana Square. It's a delightful facility. They got their start here in downtown St. Paul at Union Depot. Their 80th anniversary is coming up. It would be good to get them back here. They could certainly be part of this multi-use facility. There would be plenty of room for them in there. What's something else that somebody thought of?
Ice skating in the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah, let's do the Minnesota Artisan Center.
Okay.
There's a lot of artists in Lowertown, but there really is no central gathering place for them. This building would offer that opportunity. And when I was talking to a group of artists a number of months ago, a woman mentioned to me the Kentucky Artisan Center. Perhaps this could be modeled after that, so I coined the name the Minnesota Artisan Center.
I like that. The city of St. Paul has been awarded $25 million from the state for the ballpark. They have most of the money to proceed. Are you concerned with that?
Oh, I think it's great that they've got the money now, and I think there's talk about them opening in May of 2015. That's a great thing. And what was the other part of your question?
What about citizen input?
Oh yeah, citizen input. I mean, for many months I've been asking City Hall, Mayor Coleman, others to involve people in the decision-making process for the ballpark. Real quickly, in January of this year, this is the regional ballpark legislative request that went to Governor Dayton, the lawmakers, and countless other people. It showed the conceptual basic facts that could become reality if you build a ballpark in Lowertown. The one thing I've really tried to bring home again and again is there is a disclaimer in here that the artist rendering that shows the ballpark, underneath it says, this is an early artist rendering, community input will help determine the ballpark's actual design. And the city leadership seems hesitant to actually make sure that occurs. So yes, I remain concerned about citizen input, and that's really what the basis of this video is, to help educate people.
What shortcomings do you see?
With the city's current plan?
Yes.
I think the orientation will later be viewed upon as being maybe not good for baseball, but for the fans looking out beyond the ballpark, two things are going to really be striking is a 2-block long wall on the right field side that you will not be able to see over. It's quite tall. And then above that, looming over a lot of the field, will be the traffic on the Lafayette Bridge going off into the distance. I think the circulation patterns, because they're taking out 5th Street down there, traffic will not be able to circulate around the site as they can right now. There'll be some congestion. The other,
art displays?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of discussion about bringing art into the ballpark. As a professional artist, and I've talked to a lot of other artists, art and baseball almost seems like apples and oranges. And I don't want people to be disappointed later on to say, we're going to have art displays in here and you're going to sell art in here, and then it doesn't really work out in the long run.
Sure.
That's why the multi-use concept has a separate and large area for like the Minnesota Artisan Center.
Okay. Now you're on the board of the Downtown District Council. Tell us what happened at the board meeting this morning.
There's 17 district councils in the city of St. Paul. I was elected to the board in July of this year. They have a development committee meeting. I brought this concept up before that committee in August. And the motion I wanted to bring forward was tabled. And then I brought it to the group again this morning. And I will read it. What's
Read
that,
the
Bill?
motion.
You want me to read? What do you want me to do?
Read the motion.
Read the motion. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here is the motion. The Capitol River Council supports the City of St. Paul's plans to develop a ballpark in Lowertown on the Gillette Diamond Products site, and the inclusion of both downtown and citywide community input to help determine the ballpark's actual design, as stated in the City of St. Paul's January 2012 Regional Ballpark Legislative Request. And an open ballpark design discussion that includes the demolition of the Gillette Diamond Products building and the repurposing of the Gillette Diamond Products building as viable ways to create a superior regional ballpark. What happened? They voted it down. And I was disappointed. I don't know what is so, I was disappointed because it's calling for citywide community input beyond downtown, particularly because the taxpayers are paying for most of this ballpark, and having a discussion about reusing the Gillette building versus knocking it down. A discussion.
Right.
And when you talk to people on the streets in Lowertown, the cross city, they're kind of, they don't understand this. Why wouldn't we have the discussion? Who loses if we do?
What was their reason, or do you not know?
For voting?
Voting it down and...
Well, with this, there's a new committee that the city council asked to be formed. It's the Lowertown Ballpark Design and Construction Committee. And that was assembled today. There's 15 people on there. But when you look at the city council resolution that called for that, within it, it said this committee's focus will be during the construction phase, not the design phase.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That doesn't really make sense, or does it?
To some people, they would rather the committee focus on the design aspect rather than the construction.
Right. Who has raised the greatest objections to your involvement? The public, City Hall, or the Saints, and why?
City Hall and the Saints second. Very few members of the public have raised objections to this. Again and again they say, why wouldn't we discuss this? they see so much value in the concept. Why wouldn't we discuss this?
Right.
Yeah.
Related to the alternate ballpark concept you have put forward, respond to these words. Orientation of playing field.
Later on, when this video ends, I'm going to give you an address for a blog where you can learn a lot more about what we're talking about right now. The orientation, if you save the Gillette building, of the ball field is to the northwest, north just a titch. And I've talked at length about the sun will be over here rather than directly ahead when the batter's up to the home plate. And there are no requirements for minor league ball teams as to how the orientation of the field should be. I would argue with the city's concept, people in the outfield and even in second base are going to be looking directly into the setting sun during evening games. What was the other?
Brownfield?
There is a fair amount of pollution on the site, perhaps towards the east end more than anything. The building was for sale until recently. It was a former Gillette factory, Diamond Products factory. If the Port Authority had not bought it, a private party could have bought it and opened up a factory in there again. So the fact that there is contaminated soil on the site does not preclude reusing the building for a factory or a ballpark.
Sure. How about depth of stands?
If any of you who are listening to us today, if you have time to look at the information that's on the blog, there's a PowerPoint presentation there. The stands would be tiered rather than just this big swath, kind of in an L shape as the city's current plans are. One of the arguments I've heard against this is that the depth of the stands behind home plate is not great enough. And my argument is there's actually 3 levels of seating behind home plate, so it puts more people closer to the action.
Oh, sure. Okay, how about HVAC system?
The building would need new heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. And as I said, with a new construction plan, you would need to do the same thing.
Right.
And much of this building would be, almost separate from the ballpark for other future tenants. So those HVAC system concerns would be taken care of as their tenants are found for the building.
How about skyways?
The city has a position against the skyway system, which I find very interesting as I see city officials using the skyways all the time, that they don't want the skyways to go outside the core area of downtown St. Paul, but yet, 10, 12 years ago, there was a very strong effort to get the skyways up to the XL Energy
Right.
Center because it made economic sense. And to get a skyway into this Lowertown site is almost like a mirror image, the sites from
Indeed.
each other. It makes absolute economic sense to get whatever's constructed down there on the skyway system. And those of us who have an investment down here, ladies and gentlemen, those of us who live down here, work down here, own businesses down here, and those of us who visit down here, we overwhelmingly like the skyway system. We like the choice that it offers.
Yes.
So if these urban planners from Toronto or wherever they may be don't like them, they don't have to use them. They can walk
Indeed.
outside.
And they should be here in January when it's sub-zero. How about cost and feasibility study?
Feasibility studies. This is like, I don't know how much I need to do as far as collect information. I've collected a lot so far.
Sure.
This is a feasibility study, something the city could do very easily, and they could have done it many months ago, and they refused to. They just don't want to talk about this concept. What was the other part of your question? That's
Cost and feasibility study.
I have a innate feeling that reusing that Gillette building would be the same amount of money as the city's ballpark plan, not including building out spaces for the other tenants, but creating the ballpark, cutting away the building, having indoor parking, and a skyway connection for that same $50 million price tag.
Seems like a better deal.
I do believe it's a better deal, and again, the city should be soliciting feedback from people, other design professionals, even as a courtesy. It's like, does this make sense? And I've
Right.
talked to many architects and planners, and they said, this makes absolute sense to look into.
Shame they're not doing it.
At this point, no.
We are done. We're going on to our next site. So we're going to end this segment.
Where are we going?
I believe we are going to the site of the current Gillette building.
About 3 blocks from here.